A little boy doesn't let anyone into his room until a police officer steps inside and discovers what he was hiding. Paige Bailey was an elderly woman who lived by herself in a small town right outside of Los Angeles County in California. The house right next door to Paige had been vacant for months until one day she noticed that she had new neighbors moving in. Although Paige never officially met her neighbors, she started to notice that there was a young boy who moved into the house who would spend 99% of his time outdoors. Paige began to notice that the boy would play with all of the neighborhood kids, and when they were sent home because of curfew, he would still stay outside by himself. The next morning when Paige awoke, she realized that the boy was still outside sitting by himself and decided to report it to the local police station. The police department agreed that it was suspicious and decided to send a police officer to the young boy's house. The officer was greeted by a young boy named John who told him that he didn't have a warrant and was not allowed in his house, and became extremely defensive. The officer entered the house anyways, and what he discovered is so shocking you will not believe it. Part 2 coming soon. Sisters install hidden cameras in their mom's nursery home, and what they catch the staff doing will shock you. Joy Lewis was a 70-year-old woman from England who was extremely smart and quickly became one of the best lawyers in her entire city. While Joy was fresh in the field as a brand new lawyer, she ended up meeting a man who was also going to school to become a lawyer, and the couple quickly fell in love and eventually got married. Their family grew extremely quickly as the couple had 2 daughters back to back, but unfortunately many years later, Joy's husband passed away. Joy's daughters began to realize how badly their father passing away actually affected their mom, and tried their very best to cheer her up whenever they could. Unfortunately, Joy's health began to decline, and she was eventually diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which made it extremely difficult for her daughters to even take care of her. The sisters decided to put their mom into an elderly home, but noticed that things seemed off when they would go to visit her. The daughters decided to put up security cameras, and what they saw the staff doing to their mom is so shocking you won't believe it. Part 2 coming soon. Sisters install hidden cameras in their mom's nursery home, and what they catch the staff doing will shock you. Part 2. After Joy's husband died, her health began to decline rapidly, which put a ton of stress on her 2 grown daughters who both worked full-time. Joy's daughters tried their very best to take care of their mom, who was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, but found it way too difficult and time-consuming, so they admitted her into a nursery home. The 2 daughters felt extremely safe and reassured that they were taking their mom to the best facility in their entire country, but unfortunately nothing went as expected. Upon visiting their mom at the facility one day, the 2 daughters noticed that their mom was extremely quiet and had bruises all over her wrists. The 2 daughters set up a few cameras in their mom's room, and what they ended up seeing was so disturbing they called the police. On the cameras, they saw the nurses dragging their mom out of bed, yelling at her, and even refusing her medication. When the police showed up, they ended up arresting all of the nurses, and the daughters decided to get 24/7 on-site care at their own house. A boy complains of a stomachache to his school nurse, but what happens next is so shocking you won't believe it. Joshua Gray was a young student from Texas who lived in a cozy neighborhood with his mom. Although Josh's dad left when he was only 6 months old, his mom made sure he played plenty of sports and succeeded in school. Right before graduating high school, Joshua was hit with the extremely difficult question of what he was going to pursue for his career. His mom saw that his mood changed almost immediately, and he began to be filled with anxiety thinking about making a decision. One day before Joshua went to school, he sat down with his mom and told her that he had finally made a decision and would let her know as soon as he was home from school that day. Around 11 a.m. in class that day, Josh had an extremely sharp pain in his stomach that sent him to the school nurse. When Josh finally made it to the nurse's office, he began to scream in pain, which caused them to call 911. The ambulance rushed Josh to the hospital, but what happened next is so shocking you won't believe it. Part 2 coming soon. A boy complains of a stomachache to his school nurse, but what happens next is so shocking you won't believe it. Part 2. While Joshua was in class, he began to experience extreme excruciating pain inside his stomach that sent him to the nurse's office. By the time that Josh got up to the nurse's office, he was screaming in excruciating pain, so the nurse decided to call 911 because she knew that this wasn't just a normal stomach issue. During the ambulance ride, Joshua went unconscious multiple times, and although they were able to resuscitate him, things weren't looking too good. Nurses and doctors tried their best to save Joshua, but within a half hour, he unfortunately passed away, which caused all of the staff to start looking into what caused this. Doctors eventually discovered and informed Joshua's mom that an artery inside his body burst, causing his pancreas to burst as well. Doctors told Josh's mom that this was totally inevitable and something that he had from birth. His mom raised $35,000 through GoFundMe and then donated all of the money to a similar cause. Breaking news, Lil Tay just passed away, but the story gets even crazier. Now, if you're not aware of who Lil Tay is, she was a 9-year-old who went viral almost 5 years ago on the internet for flexing how much money she had. Lil Tay was going viral almost every day back in 2018 and even dropped some diss tracks claiming she was a rapper, but things started to get weird when people found out what her parents were doing. This is Lil Tay's mom, and multiple allegations came out against her, saying that she was pimping out her kids and just stealing all of the money. Now here's where things get even weirder. Her parents posted this on her social media today announcing her death. Now if you read through this statement that was posted to Lil Tay's Instagram, you'll notice her parents also mentioning her older brother died at 21, making people think something suspicious is going on. Regardless of the truth, make sure to comment RIP below and enjoy this video of her going viral back in 2018.
To all y'all broke ass haters, y'all ain't doing it like Lil Tay. This is why all y'all ears hate me. This cost me $200,000. I'm only 9 years old. I ain't got no license, but I still drive this sports car. Your favorite rapper ain't even doing it like Lil Tay.
Breaking news, Lil Tay might actually still be alive, and I have some shocking proof that just came out minutes ago. If you've been on social media in the past 24 hours, I'm sure you've seen pictures like this claiming that Lil Tay passed away. Lil Tay's Instagram page posted this, claiming that her and her brother both passed away, but then things started to get weird. People started digging around on the internet and noticed that her YouTube page said "help me" in her bio. As of just minutes ago, TMZ announced that they were actually able to get in communication with Lil Tay. Lil Tay told TMZ that her and her brother are both home safe with their parents and that her Instagram account actually got hacked. She told TMZ that the last 24 hours have been awful because her real family has been reaching out to see if she passed away. Although no one's seen anything actually posted or said by Lil Tay, many people are still skeptical on if she's really alive or not. A lot of people believe that this was a viral stunt for clout run by Lil Tay's mom to get money rolling in again. Do you think Lil Tay is still alive, and if so, do you think her parents are behind all of this? Comment below. A son and dad die in a car accident, then the son is brought back to life, and what he says will shock you. Anthony, his wife Julie, and their son Landon were all in the car on their way home from a vacation trip. Everything seemed to be going well until their vehicle got sideswiped by an ambulance in the middle of an intersection. Unfortunately, Anthony died immediately, but rescuers were able to stabilize Julie, although they were unaware of a third person in the vehicle. The vehicle had so much damage that rescuers did not see 8-year-old Landon lying in the back seat. One of the first responders saw a young boy's shoe on the side of the road, which is how he knew Landon was still trapped in the car. When the 8-year-old boy was removed from the car, he was resuscitated and then flown to a hospital where he died and was brought back to life 2 more times. Doctors told his mom he would probably not survive, although he woke up 2 weeks later. What Landon told his mom is so shocking you will not believe it. Part 2 coming soon. A son and dad die in a car accident, then the son is brought back to life, and what he says will shock you. Part 2. When Landon finally woke up, Julie wanted him to understand that his dad had passed away in the car accident. Julie leaned over to ask him if he knew where his father was, and his response shocked everyone. He told his mom yes because he saw his dad in heaven. His response left his mom shocked, but what he continued to say left her speechless. Before I continue, I just discovered a brand new app where you can prank your friends by spam texting them at max speed. Click the link in my bio to try it out for free. Landon told his mom while he was in heaven he also saw her 2 other children. At first she was confused because he was the only child, but soon she knew what he meant. Before Julie had Landon, she was pregnant twice but miscarried both times. She was extremely shocked he knew that because she had never said anything before. Landon's mom was just happy he survived. A dad put a recording device in his daughter's hair, and what he caught her teacher saying will shock you. Every day after school, Thomas Valeria noticed his daughter crying, so he knew something was wrong. Every time Thomas saw his daughter crying, he began to get more and more worried about what was truly going on. He noticed his daughter's personality change and she became very emotional right before the new school year started. Every morning before school started, his daughter would break down crying and beg her dad to keep her home. But every time he asked her about what was really going on, she wouldn't speak. Thomas eventually got fed up and decided to take matters into his own hands. He decided he was going to listen in on his daughter while she was at school in a very secretive way. Thomas carefully put a recording device in his daughter's hair before sending her to school. When she returned from school, he took the recording device out, and what he heard on it was much worse than anything he could have imagined. Part 2 coming soon. A dad put a recording device in his daughter's hair, and what he caught her teacher saying will shock you. Part 2. After listening to the entire recording, Thomas was absolutely livid. The recording made it seem as though his daughter's teacher was being mean to the entire class. Thomas continued listening to the recording, and after hearing everything the teacher said, he knew he had to act immediately. Before I continue, I just discovered a brand new app that will allow you to erase anything from your photos, and I mean anything. Click the link in my bio to try it out for free. The recording showed the teacher yelling and using profanity towards all the students. Thomas went to the school board to make sure the teacher would be held accountable. But when he told them what happened, they said there was nothing they could do. Thomas decided to start a petition to see change within the school. Thousands of people began to support, and Thomas hopes he made a difference. A woman lived with her husband for 40 years until one day the FBI told her who he really was. Bobby and Cheryl were a happily married couple that had spent over 40 years together. The couple had a very happy marriage, but after such a long time of being married, they had no idea their entire world was about to change. One day Cheryl was making tea in the kitchen of her Brooklyn home when she heard a knock on the front door. She wasn't expecting any company, so she made her way to the front door to check who was there. When she made it to the front door, she was met by a bunch of police officers who stormed in. The officers ran past Cheryl and made their way upstairs, where they found Bobby laying in bed. The cops asked Bobby for his name, and when he said Bobby Love, they said, "No, what's your real name?" Cheryl heard him mumble something really low, and that's when they put him in cuffs. Cheryl was confused because she never knew Bobby to be a criminal, but when she found out the real reason he was arrested, she was shocked. Part 2 coming soon. A woman lived with her husband for 40 years until one day the FBI told her who he really was. Part 2. Cheryl began to cry as police took Bobby away in cuffs. Cheryl began to cry and told Bobby to tell her what was going on, and that's when he admitted he was being arrested for a crime he did way before he ever met her. When Cheryl arrived at the local police station, Bobby began to give her a rundown of why he was being arrested. But before I continue, I just discovered a brand new app that will blow up your Snapchat. Click the link in my bio if you want to blow up your Snapchat. Bobby explained that when he was younger, he got into a lot of trouble. He explained that he was sent to juvenile hall on multiple occasions, and when he got out, his crimes got much worse. He admitted to multiple armed robberies and told her that he even went to prison for this. He said that he broke out of prison, met her, and started a brand new life. When he met Cheryl, he changed his name and has been on the run ever since. An 11-year-old girl woke up from a 4-year coma, and what she said will shock you. Victoria was an 11-year-old girl who loved outdoor activities such as running, swimming, and playing with her friends. All of a sudden, Victoria began experiencing asthma attacks, flu-like symptoms, and fainting out of nowhere. As time went on, she began to lose all of her coordination and began tripping randomly. She began to lose the movement in her arms, hand, and the rest of her body. She began to have difficulty swallowing, so doctors started running tests. Doctors told her mom she had multiple autoimmune diseases and irreversible brain damage. Her mom took her home to care for her, where she laid in the same bed having recurring seizures for 20 hours a day. 3 days after she turned 15, doctors changed her prescriptions when a miracle occurred. Victoria opened up her eyes for the first time in 4 years. What Victoria told her mom is so shocking it left her speechless. Part 2 coming soon. An 11-year-old girl woke up from a 4-year coma in which she said will shock you. Part 2. As Victoria began to regain her ability to move her eyes, her mom became ecstatic. Regardless of what happened, Victoria's mom never lost hope and made sure she was as positive as she could be. Victoria knew if she stopped fighting to survive, the pain and agony would stop, but she refused to do that. Eventually, she was able to move her fingertips and made it her mission to get better. After relearning how to talk, she told her mom something so shocking it left her speechless. Before I continue, I just discovered a brand new way to blow up your Snapchat. Click the link in my bio to try it out for free. Victoria told her mom that despite not being able to move, she was very much awake and heard everything. She heard doctors say she'd never wake up, and the hardest part was not being able to talk. She was dedicated to walk again, and after much physical therapy, eventually reached her goal. If your snap doesn't look like this, then stay till the end of this video and I'm gonna show you how you can do this too. I just discovered a secret Snapchat hack where you can increase your snap score and make a ton new friends. All you have to do is click the download button or click the link in my bio. And now your phone won't look like this anymore. Thank me later. How rare is your eye color? 74% of people actually have brown eyes. However, blue eyes are a lot more rare because only 10% of the population has these. Only 5% of people have hazel or amber eyes. And only 3% of people have gray eyes. But only 2% of people have green colored eyes. Only 1% of people have multicolored eyes. Now comment what color your eyes are. Here are some things that are a lot bigger than you thought. First up, we have an ancient pyramid that seems pretty big until you see it next to a normal person, which makes it look massive. This is what a human skeleton looks like next to a gorilla skeleton. And this is what a 10 megabyte hard drive looks like from the 1960s. This is how small people look inside a crystal cave. And this is a normal sized baby compared to the biggest baby in the world at 23 pounds. And I never knew freshwater stingrays were this big. Here's some of the most unlucky people having a really bad day. This woman sat on this bench, but if you look at the floor, you'll notice that the paint is wet. And this little girl was shopping for shoes before the store closed, but they actually locked her in. And here's what happens when the SWAT team doesn't quite know what they're doing. This woman thought she was gonna have the perfect passport photo, but instead ended up with a 5 head. This lady was just trying to do her makeup when she accidentally got caught. And this kid trying to put a bottle back quickly learned what happens when you try to do a good deed. Queen Elizabeth has officially passed away, so in honor of her life, here are some facts about her that you probably didn't know. Queen Elizabeth was able to use her purse to send signals to her team to alert them of things going on. She was also known for drinking a whole glass of champagne every day. Queen Elizabeth was the longest British ruling monarch ever. As a little girl, she had private tutors and never technically went to school. And Queen Elizabeth was actually related to her husband through previous marriages of royal families. When Allison noticed that the man walking up to her car window had a knife in his hand, she knew that she was going to have one of the worst nights of her entire life. Fearing for her life, Allison allowed the man into her car and he took off, telling her, "If you try to stop me, I will kill you." Allison's heart was racing, fearing for her life, but within 15 minutes, the man arrived at a motel halfway across the city. A second man proceeded to walk out and climb into the car with Allison, and then the car took off to the middle of the woods. When the car stopped, the two men completed some sexual acts on Allison and then decided to stab her more than 30 times. When the men believed that they had killed Allison, they kicked her out of the car and took off. What the two men were not aware of was that Allison was actually still breathing, and what happened next is a miracle. I just posted the full-length video on my YouTube. Click the link in my bio to see what happens. People have been getting extremely upset over a video going viral where this TikToker tries to get their waiters fired for simply misgendering them.
I wonder if there's a manager I could talk to about something that happened.
This TikToker recently posted a compilation video to their account showing them going out to eat at various different restaurants where they were misgendered and called sir. When you watch the video, you're able to see that all of the waiters and waitresses were extremely apologetic and none of them seemed to be intentional. Despite the waiter immediately apologizing to the TikToker for confusing their gender and calling them sir, the TikToker decided to ask for the manager to speak about the incident. People on TikTok were extremely upset by the fact that this TikToker seems to be causing unnecessary problems and even began calling them sir all in their comment section. People on TikTok are noticing that these interactions seem to be premeditated since the TikToker sets up their phone in advance and wears a microphone at all times. What are your thoughts on this? This person's wedding is going viral on social media right now for being one of the most expensive weddings ever, costing over $59 million. Watch this. This thing looks incredible. Wow. Now this woman right here is whose wedding it was, Madeline Brockway, and now I don't know who she is, but you have to be somebody to afford a $59 million wedding. Not only did they rent out this entire venue, which cost $620,000 a night online, but she also had thousands of people at her wedding, which I'm sure racked up an expensive food bill, and even had Maroon 5 playing at her wedding, which I'm not really sure why she would have picked them out of all bands. Now, although I don't know exactly who these people are, their families have to be pretty wealthy to afford a $59 million wedding. Do you think it was worth it? This is why you should never go skydiving. Watch this.
Oh my god!
Hi guys, today I'm going to be reviewing the new Grimace Shake from McDonald's. As you can see, they couldn't do their fucking job and keep their cups in stock. Anyway, here we go. Tastes pretty good.
These are some of the worst ways that people have ever died, part 1. On November 24th of 2009, a man named John Edward Jones, who was a professional cave explorer, decided he was up for a brand new challenge. After exploring almost every cave that he could possibly get into, he decided to go to the most infamous spot near him called the Nutty Putty Cave. John eventually arrived at the cave and decided to enter head first. Unfortunately, the tunnel in the cave was a lot tighter than he expected and his arm got stuck. 28 hours later, John passed away, and they decided to shut the cave off to the public, locking him inside forever. In 2015, a Colombian man decided to visit a doctor because he noticed that he was out of breath and losing weight rapidly. The doctors took a scan of his lungs and discovered that he had a cancerous mass that was growing extremely rapidly inside his lungs. They discovered that the cells inside the cancer mass were not human cells, but actually cells from a tapeworm. This means that the man had a cancerous tapeworm living inside his body that gave him cancer, causing him to die. A man opened a gift from his ex 47 years later, and what he found inside will shock you. Adrian Pierce was a 60-year-old man from Toronto, Canada, who was dumped by his high school sweetheart half a century ago. Back when he was in high school, he was in a relationship with a girl named Vicky for more than 2 years before the couple broke up. Before breaking up with him, Vicky handed him a gift that the heartbroken Adrian refused to open. The breakup was extremely hard on Adrian since it was the holiday season, but Vicky insisted that he took the gift she bought for him. Since Adrian was heartbroken, he took the gift and put it under his tree, but he could never get himself to actually open it. As the years went by, he eventually fell in love with another woman named Valerie, who he started a family with. Throughout the years, he continued putting the gift under his tree, and although his family begged him to open it, he was never actually able to. His family finally forced him to open the gift, and what he found inside is so shocking you will not believe it. Part 2 coming soon. This woman has one of the most strange and disturbing addictions that I've ever heard of, and I promise you, you won't be able to guess what it is. Watch this.
My name is Linda. I'm 56 years old. I live outside of Tampa, Florida with my husband of 3 years. I am happily married to a carnival ride called a skydiver. His name is Bruce, and we've known each other since 1981. My first relationship was with an airplane. The last serious relationship I had before I met Bruce was with a locomotive. That didn't work out. Some women like tall men. Some women like men with a colorful personality. He's got all of that, you know, and to me, I mean, Bruce is just amazing when he stands up and just being spread out.
A former Starbucks manager who claimed she was fired for being white just won more than $25 million in a racial bias lawsuit.
A jury on Monday found in favor of former regional director Shannon Phillips, who claimed that Starbucks fired her due to her simply being white. Shannon was a regional director who worked for Starbucks for over 13 years, but everything changed in 2018. Back in 2018, two black men were asked to leave a local Starbucks when employees noticed they were sitting inside and not ordering anything. The two men told employees that they were not going to leave because they were waiting for a friend, but the manager got fed up and called police, who escorted them outside in handcuffs. Although Shannon was not involved in the incident or part of the arrest, since she was the regional director of this store, Starbucks later fired her. Shannon felt as though she did nothing wrong and decided to go ahead and sue Starbucks for a ton of money. After a 6-day trial, the New Jersey jury unanimously voted in favor of Shannon. They decided that Starbucks racially discriminated against her because she was white and rewarded her with $25.6 million. And this all happened because these two men were arrested. Do you think she deserves it? This man came out of a 12-year coma, and what he said will shock you. Martin was a young 12-year-old boy who was born in South Africa. One day he came home from school and complained to his parents about having a sore throat. Doctors unfortunately didn't have the time to treat the boy because within a few days his condition got so bad he couldn't move his body at all. Martin began to sleep all day, not be able to feel his body, and within a week fell into a deep coma. The doctors told his family to take him home and to watch over him until the disease fully took over his body. Martin went on to live inside his house for the next 10 years, where he lay there in a coma while his parents took care of him. One day his parents went in to check on him and were extremely happy when they noticed major signs of improvement. Martin began to open his eyes and show signs of life that doctors did not think was possible. Within a day, he was able to communicate with his family and even started getting some of his bodily functions back. What Martin told his family is so shocking it left them all speechless. Part 2 coming soon. This man holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the stretchiest skin in the world, and make sure you stay till the end because I have a shocking video that will demonstrate just how stretchy his skin actually is. This man's name is Gary Turner, otherwise known as the Elastic Man, and he has what is known to be some of the stretchiest skin ever found on a human being. Gary's career has been extremely eventful, but he has made the majority of his money traveling around the world and being in many circus acts doing things like this. Gary suffers with a rare medical condition where his body does not produce the collagen to keep his skin elastic. But lucky for him, he's made the most out of it and even holds the Guinness World Records for the most clothespins attached to someone's face. Now enjoy this extremely shocking video of him demonstrating how stretchy his skin really is.
I'm actually the man with the world's stretchiest skin, Gary Stretch.
A boy makes one more request to his doctor before surgery, then his parents find out and are shocked. Jackson is a young boy who unfortunately was born with a cyst on his brain at birth. From the day that he was born, Jackson spent a ton of time in the hospital getting tests run on him by doctors. Instead of being able to do normal things like play with his friends, Jackson has spent the majority of his time inside the hospitals getting MRIs and CAT scans. Jackson was a pro when it came to surgery, and he actually had one approaching that he was quite nervous for. When it was time for Jackson's big surgery, the doctor made him say goodbye to his parents and wheeled him back to the operating room. The nurses got his IV hooked up before surgery, and right before he went to sleep, he waved over the doctor. Jackson decided to ask the doctor for one more request that was very strange before surgery, and without thinking twice or even asking his parents, the doctor instantly agreed to do it. Part 2 is coming soon. Here are some 1 in a million coincidences that I guarantee you won't believe happened. This fire breather looks like he's kissing an actual dragon. And this guy found one of the biggest nuts ever with 5 peanuts inside one shell. This person was enjoying a beer when they realized that a fly impaled themselves on their fake cactus. And while this person was doing the dishes, they dropped a dish and it perfectly split down the middle. At first I thought I was tripping, but this is actually a seagull standing on the back of another seagull. What is the coincidence that this truck says dot and this license plate says com? This person was parked near a construction zone when this tree split perfectly over it, not even touching the car. This car almost got a speeding ticket, but this duck flew in front of his license plate at the right time. I don't even know what's going on here, but what are the odds? And this guy in a Luigi costume took his head off and looks exactly like Luigi. A son and dad die in a car accident, then the son is brought back to life, and what he says will shock you. Andy, his wife Julie, and their son Landon were all in the car together on their ride home from a recent vacation trip. Everything seemed to be going great until the family was hit by an ambulance crossing an intersection that was headed back to the station. Sadly, Andy died instantly, and rescuers were able to save Julie, but they were unaware that there was a third person in the car. There was so much damage to the car that rescuers didn't see 8-year-old Landon lying in the back seat. One of the first responders saw a young boy's shoe sitting on the concrete, and that's how he knew that Landon was still trapped in the car. When the 8-year-old boy was removed from the car, he was resuscitated and then flown to a nearby hospital where he died and was brought back to life 2 more times. Doctors told Landon's mom there was a good chance he would not survive. 2 weeks later, Landon woke up and showed no signs of permanent damage. But what Landon told his mom is so shocking you won't believe it. Part 2 coming soon. A girl gave her dad a DNA test for Christmas, but the results exposed a dark family truth that will shock you. Rebecca was born to her parents Joseph and Jenna and remained their only child her entire life. She knew that her father's family came from Italy, but she didn't know much more than that. In time, Rebecca became extremely curious about her heritage and knew that she wanted to figure out where she came from. Rebecca decided to buy a DNA test for her and her parents to find out where their roots really came from. She made sure to get one of the DNA tests for herself as well, so she and her parents could all share their results together. After giving the test to her parents, they all took it before sending it in to get the results. After long, excruciating months of waiting, their test results finally came in. Once she finally realized that her test results were in, she gathered her family so they could all analyze the results. Everyone began looking at the results, but things didn't seem to really add up. The results shocked the entire family and are so crazy you will not believe it. Part 2 coming soon. A dad buries his son, then days later receives a creepy call from the grave. Frank Kerrigan was an older man from California who was constantly worried and concerned about his only son, who was also named Frank. On a beautiful Friday morning, Frank awoke to see that his phone had missed multiple calls, which was very abnormal for him. When Frank finally called the number back, he realized that it was the coroner's office calling him to tell him that his son had passed away. They told Frank that his 57-year-old son was found behind a Verizon store dead. Shocked and heartbroken, Frank asked if he should come down to verify that the body was indeed his son's. The police department told Frank that there was no need since they already verified his son from his fingerprints. Frank later drove down to collect his son's body and spent over $20,000 on his funeral. After the ceremony, Frank went home and a few weeks later received a phone call that left him speechless. Part 2 coming soon. This boy went missing for 2 years, then his parents checked behind the dresser and what they find will shock you. Shannon and Michael were a couple that gave birth to a little boy named Ricky, but after trying to make things work, they split up and shared custody of him. They tried to co-parent the best that they could, but after continuously fighting, Michael was deployed overseas. After Michael returned home, he tried to be a good father, but Shannon was not following the custody agreement, so he took her to court. The court date was set, but when the day rolled around, Shannon was a no-show. Ricky and his mother Shannon disappeared, so they issued a missing person warrant through their local police department. They searched Shannon's mom's house to see if they were hiding him, but they found absolutely nothing. 2 years had passed and Michael was eager to find his son, so he asked the police to search her house one more time. This time police noticed a wooden dresser that seemed to have been moved because it left marks on the wooden floor. The officers moved the dresser to get a better look at what was behind it, and what they discovered when they moved it is so shocking you won't believe it. Part 2 coming soon. A baby keeps disappearing from its crib, so its parents install a security camera, and what they find will shock you. Chris and Nina were a very happy couple from Phoenix, Arizona who recently had a baby together named Chloe. Being great parents, they made sure to get the best crib on the market for their daughter and even made sure to get rails so she wouldn't fall out. Every night, the couple would put Chloe to sleep and then try to get some sleep themselves until one night everything changed. One morning, Nina woke up to make herself coffee when she noticed that her daughter Chloe was in the living room crawling around on the floor playing with all of her toys. Chris and Nina were extremely shocked to find their daughter outside of her crib, so they went to check on it, but everything seemed to be in working order. The couple tried to understand how Chloe got out of her crib, but they couldn't figure it out. The couple decided to brush this off and go on with their normal days until this happened night after night. Chris and Nina didn't know what else to do, so they decided to buy a baby monitor. The very next morning, they watched the footage on the baby monitor and they could not believe what they saw. Part 2 coming soon. 24 years after this girl vanished, her brother made a disturbing confession that will shock you. David and Martha lived with their parents in Florida, only a few miles away from the popular beaches. David was 14 and Martha was 12, and although she was only 74 pounds, she had a very combative personality that nobody messed with. On Thanksgiving, their dad burnt the turkey and began screaming, so they decided to leave their house and walk around outside to escape the noise. They walked to an abandoned college that was a popular hangout for local kids. After hanging out there for a while, Martha left and vanished for good. Several attempts were made to find the little girl, but none of them successful. After the disappearance of the little girl, their parents got a divorce and their family began to fall apart. One day when David was much older, he was arrested by police for writing a bad check. When David was questioned by police, he told them that he knew exactly what happened to his little sister Martha. What David went on to tell police is so shocking you will not believe it. Part 2 coming soon. A Russian boy claims that he lived on Mars in a past life, and he brought a terrifying warning about Earth's future. Boris was a young kid who was born in Russia, but unlike most kids, he was able to hold his head up entirely on his own. Boris was able to progress extremely quickly, and by the time he was only 2 weeks old, could speak fluently. By the time that Boris was 2 years old, he was already able to read and write, so he started kindergarten a lot earlier than most of his friends. Boris began to blow his teachers and friends away when he would talk about space before ever being taught anything about it. He began describing the way that the solar system worked in ways that even his parents couldn't comprehend. When Boris was only 7, he went on a camping trip with his parents and told them something that left them speechless. He told his parents that he used to live on Mars and was sent to Earth to save the world. He went into full depth of how he used to live on Mars, and his parents were in full disbelief. What Boris went on to tell his parents about Earth is so shocking they could not believe it. Part 2 coming soon.